Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And hello, James. Really good to see you again.
Hello, Andrew. It's so good to be back.
Yay. And we're talking about a rather different film this time to what we looked at previously. So we've had two films from the 90s, great historical epics under our belt. And we dived all the way back to the 1940s in the last episode. So where are our travels taking us now, Jane?
Oh, we are going all dinosaurs. We are going back to Steven Spielberg's classic Jurassic Park from 1990. Oh, three, is it?
It was 1993. I remember it well, and it was one of the best films in a decade of awesome films. So good
It
choice.
was, and it was the one I think that probably really put Steven Spielberg in the spotlight. A spotlight. I think he came out with Schindler's List the year after. So he was like, really creating like movie history with all of this. And this, of course, being quite a bit of a technical adventure as well.
Yes, it scored a lot of firsts. I remember coming out of the cinema, astounded. I mean, it was one of the best films I'd ever seen, and I know I'm in good company because apparently it was the best-selling film up to that time.
Yeah.
Um, And I just did not know how they did it. I had gone into the theater and I had seen dinosaurs. And
Yes.
normally, when you watch a film, you kind of think, oh, I know how they did that. I came out of that thinking, how on earth did they do that? They looked alive. It was
It,
amazing.
it was literally like, they had walked into a zoo where they have these creatures and just, filmed that movie in that place. It was literally like it was coming alive. And uh, I think one of the things, especially that was so convincing, not just the way they had created these on screen, but the way the story, I know it follows the book quite closely, but the way the story treats this subject of genetic sort of manipulation, and the book of course go into a lot of detail about the technical stuff and the scientific stuff, but the movie did revolve around this entire aspect of should we, because we can, just because we can do something, should we then also do it? And this need, I think, also in humanity of wanting to control, especially what we have created ourselves, we think we can control. And I think that was probably one of the most essential perspectives of the movie's success as well, that it treated those subjects and those questions really, really well. It really was a thought-provoking movie in so many ways.
Yes, it resonated a lot with us because I may have mentioned possibly on numerous occasions that my father's a huge fan of the Terminator films and such a strong element of that and so much other cinematic literature in the 80s and 90s is humanity, be careful. You're messing with things you don't fully understand, and you shouldn't be so blithely confident that your new pets will just roll over and do as they're told. And yes, that really, really came through well in the film. I do remember lots of discussions about genetics at the time, and there was a lot of excitement. Do you remember the experiment where they first grew in an ear on the back of a mouse
Yes,
and things
yes.
like that? I can't remember where it sits chronologically in relation to Jurassic Park, but that were you very aware in the 90s of all these sorts of debates and discussions?
Yes, because they were in the media a lot. And it's a good point because we also had things like, do you remember Dolly the sheep?
Yes, Dolly the
Um,
sheep,
and that
yeah.
kind of thing popping up. So we were experimenting a lot, it seemed, and also a lot of resources were put into this, and to trying to, I guess, figure out not so much where it could take us, but what sort of benefits we might get in terms of, curing illnesses or whatever. So there was a lot of that going on. So I think also and this is a fantastic point you're making, Andrew, that the movie was very timely. It really hit something.
Yeah, and my understanding is that when Crichton wrote the novel Jurassic Park, his main aim was to get encourage people to really think about this
Yeah.
And I think I get the feeling from the novel is that he felt we were possibly rushing a bit too quickly into the
Yeah.
new science and technology, and that we hadn't fully considered the implications. And I mean, sadly, a lot of that's happened quite a few times in human history and human science. And I can see why this element was
Yeah.
particularly worrying. And I suppose if you're going to pen a story about it all going badly wrong, dinosaurs are a pretty good,
It,
very, very noticeable way of demonstrating where it can go wrong.
and there is something from an evolutionary perspective, that's just something incredibly fascinating about dinosaurs, because it's the biggest animals that ever lived here on the planet. And so it's still that period of all the paleontology, all the periods in paleontology. That's the one we keep going back to in storytelling, because there's just something so fascinating about animals and creatures that big. I mean, they
Yeah.
were insanely huge.
Yes, yes, and the film really captures that well. I love the scene where Alan and Ellie are being driven into the park complex, and Ellie's saying something about the plant life, and there's that wonderful moment, beautifully played by Sam Neill, where he just sort of stands up, going,
That's the
takes his glasses off to make sure he's not seeing things. As I think it's one of the big herbivores, a
yeah,
Brontosaurus or
yeah,
something.
yeah, a brachiosaurus, yeah.
Oh,
And he's
Brachiosaurus.
not
Thank you.
even he's not even, nudging her or sort of go have a look. He's just sort of turning her head, you know.
Yeah, it's just and the shocks just keep coming as Hammond just nonchalantly says, "Oh yeah, they're fast. We clocked 32 miles an hour on the T-Rex recently." And they go, "You have a T-Rex?" And, yeah,
It's such a
it's wonder. They
fantastic,
are such fascinating
yeah.
creatures. You probably had something like this. I had dinosaur posters from the Natural History Museum on my wall
Yeah,
as a kid, and all the National Geographic ones as
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
oh yeah. It is fantastic, and I think just the variety of species as well is amazing, and the fact that they had such a different um approach to their lives, to feeding, to breeding, to they had so many different, because we just think of them as dangerous because they're big. But
mm.
there were a lot of herbivores. There were a lot of creatures, living in very, very different ways at the same time. So I fully understand why this is such a fascinating period of time. And I think also another element from the movie that actually made it almost believable, dare I say it, is this entire fascination of extracting the DNA from a mosquito. And I think we've
Yeah.
all found a piece of amber or seen a piece of amber at some point with something in it, a little fly or something. And ooh, this lived a long time ago. And it's such a meeting with history, that one, because
Yes.
we all know flies. We smash them from time to time. But when you're standing with one that isn't of this time, that's
Mm.
such a face-to-face meeting with history. And I think it plays brilliantly into that fascination as well, that I can, with these tools, I can actually extract. We cannot today, that is too scientifically complicated, but I think that is where fantasy and science kind of overlap very beautifully in the movie, that it is actually almost believable that we can get to the blood of a real life dinosaur from a mosquito.
Yes, and it's a theme that's inspired quite a bit of other sci-fi since, because I remember watching, oh, what was the film? Prometheus some years ago, where part of the story is they find the remains of a long dead alien, and they are actually able to they attempt to revive the head because they recover the head. um and that film does stretch it a bit. I can't imagine science ever being able to do that. But it was an interesting nod back to this fascinating, as you say, you reach into history, you recover a biological artifact, and the thought that pops into your head is, hey, we could do something with
Yeah.
this. And I know there have been other short stories about people reviving Egyptian mummies, and It's a very popular theme, but I think this film definitely put the idea in a lot of contemporary heads, and we still see it running now.
True, true, true.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And another thing I think that because I just have to mention it, the movie, because you have, the in the characters, you have the classic sort of scientists in Alan Grant and Dr. Sattler, and then you have the mad sort of inventor of this park. And I think Hammond is in the book portrayed as a bit more like sort of a ruthless businessman than he probably is in
Mm,
the film. But the really, really, I think, poignant and at the same time completely apt lines come from this mad scientist Malcolm. He's
mm.
the one who says life finds a way. He's the one who has those amazing direct sort of perspectives on why this is complete madness.
Yes. Yes, and I like that he establishes himself instantly in the film by
Yeah.
bringing up chaos theory, which is his
Yes.
his forte. Like you could, and the message is clear. You can impose your controls and your systems all you like, but the universe doesn't care. Your park is just as likely to remain secure as Dr. Grant is to stay sitting in this car talking to me. Oh wait, he's just gone.
Exactly, exactly. Another great scene there. But exactly, and I think there's something wonderful about it being set through this slightly mad character, because I think initially we
Yeah.
all think of him as being a bit too much. He's kind of, oh yeah, okay, funny, but he's a little
Mm.
too much. But this kind of mix between method and madness, that's what he's doing really well. And I like that they're giving him, a lot of the funny sentences, but there will eventually be dinosaurs in this dinosaur park of yours, and that kind
Uh,
of lines. But it is from him that those very, very poignant sort of lines come, and then those perspectives come. And I think that is actually a brilliant move.
Yes, yes, and I like the comedic value in the fact that it's the apparent weirdo who's the only sane one in the group until the others voice their
Yeah,
concerns. Because at first, yes, Grant and Sattler, who know what these creatures are capable of because they've studied them their whole professional lives, they're just overwhelmed by
yeah,
what the park is and what it does. And you're right, it's only Malcolm who has that clear vision that you know and it's him and another character there's I very much admire, and it's a shame he doesn't survive the film, the very level-headed hunter slash gamekeeper Muldoon, who
yes,
I think right from the beginning Hammond actually says, oh yes, he's a bit of an alarmist when they're
yeah,
feeding the velociraptors, and you think, well, actually, no, it sounds like these things are quite dangerous. And when Muldoon says, you can tell that the big one is the
yeah,
clever one and
yeah,
she's planning and
yeah.
problem solving, there's a beautiful hint there in what's going to happen later on.
Yes, yes. No, actually, his character is brilliant because he does seem a little over dramatic, but then you get to know these creatures, and you can see
Mm,
where that extreme caution comes from, but also what he has learned about them. I think there is this scene where he's following Ellie Sattler to the bunker, and he says something like, "No, we can't go anywhere because we're being hunted," and he's not letting his eyes go of the bush in
mm.
front of him, of the tree in front of him, and because he knows what he's up against, and he knows that probably we're not getting out of this alive. But actually, he's a really, really good character as well. And you're right, he did deserve a bit more screen time, really.
Yes, yes, he's the consummate professional to the
Yeah,
end, and there's almost when his final line in the film when he says "clever girl," it's
yeah,
that professional salute from
yes,
one accomplished hunter to another.
yeah.
It's
That's actually a fantastic way of letting him go as well, because he's just realizing that I have been beaten by a trick I know they do.
yes,
I have seen them do. This is the way they hunt. They're pack hunters.
yeah,
And I should have seen this coming, but the cleverness there. And I think he's probably also the first person that gets an idea about how, especially the velociraptors, their way of logical thinking, how far ahead they actually are.
Oh, when they're testing the defenses and
Yes, and
yes,
they're
yeah,
never attacking the same place twice, and they can open doors and stuff like that. And I think
yeah.
he's the first person who probably has an idea about just how quickly they resonate and how quickly they sort of form experiences.
Yes, yes, which is not something we imagine many animals are. There's a I find there's a uniquely human arrogance in a lot of these
Yes.
stories where and it's sometimes spoken by characters where they'll say a variant of, oh, they're just dumb animals. They couldn't possibly figure that out. They're usually right before something terrible happens to
Yeah,
prove them
exactly.
wrong.
And I think they use that element as well in some of the following Jurassic Park movies. There's always that person going, "Oh, they're just dumb animals." And maybe it's because we will forever think that way. We will forever think we'll forever have that arrogance in us that we think we can control. Um,
Yes.
and we've been used to that for too long, maybe.
It is the sublime confidence of sitting at the top of the food chain for far too long. And yes, we do always manage to recover and gain the initiative back by the end of the movie. But it's always the people who are in a position to make decisions or
Yeah,
contribute significantly who are the ones who go, oh no, 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 they're not a threat at all. Even if a subordinate is going, actually, I think
yeah,
you'll find they might actually be a serious threat. But then, of course, the other thing that the film does, which I really like, is it very subtly poses the question of who is the more dangerous animal. Because I
yeah.
suppose you could argue that things don't truly go wrong in the park
No,
until Dennis Nedry gives
yeah,
in to greed
yeah,
and shuts he obviously doesn't give a monkeys about what happens in the park. He's happily shutting down security
yeah,
systems so he can make his
yeah.
escape and earn his money.
Oh, good point. Good point. And I think in many ways a lot of probably also a lot of the more sort of logical perspectives actually comes from the two kids, and I think their role was actually brilliant as well because they are excited as well, obviously, but they
Mm.
also have some of those perspectives that maybe even some of the adult scientists don't notice at first. uh,
Yeah.
which is actually really good. And I love the fact that it's Alan Grant, who doesn't really like children, who ends up with the two of them and have to follow them
Yes.
through the park. That's another little sort of brilliant twist to that
Oh,
story.
yes. Well, he really steps up, doesn't he? I love the bit where he's rescuing Tim from the
Yeah,
Jeep after it's been chucked into the tree, and you can see him struggling to make the best of the situation so Tim doesn't get frightened. It's like, right, so we're in this new dangerous position. It's like, yeah, but at least you're not stuck in the car anymore.
oh, it's such a great line. It's such a great line. And also, even that and another iconic scene where, with the high walled fence, they're
Oh,
climbing and ends up being all poof. And it and again that mix of the comical situation and the very, very serious life threatening one. But the kids actually, I think, do an amazing job in this as well. Um and I think they also give Hammond a more human perspective.
yes. Yeah. I feel I know exactly what you mean about the difference between the Hammond and the book and the
Yeah,
Hammond of film. I really like the Hammond in the film
yeah,
because he's in some ways he's a little bit lovable. It's annoying how he steamrollers past people to get what he wants. And he's buoyed up by this, sheer confidence that if he's charming enough to people, he'll
yeah,
get his way, and if he throws enough money at them. Um, but he makes this transition to, I won't say a completely broken man, but you can see it in his face by the end, and you do feel quite sorry for him because I like him most in the film when they're having that slightly fraught dinner together, and he's a
yeah,
bit dismayed that the scientists are voicing concerns. And the only happy man is, as he puts it, the blood-sucking lawyer, who's going on about, oh, we could charge $10,000 a day. And he goes, no, no, no. I don't just want this to be a park for the super rich. I want this to be for everybody.
yeah.
And it's a great window into his soul because you can see where this obsession of his comes from. And there's that very poignant chat he has later with
Yes, I was
Ellie
about to
about,
say, yeah. But
yeah, yeah. No, take it away with
oh,
that
no,
one.
I know. It's just that that's a really, I was thinking about that. That's a really good one because I think that little flea circus description also gives a window into what it was he was trying to do. And he even says it. He says, I wanted to try to do something, to create something that wasn't an illusion, something that was real.
Yeah.
And you do kind of feel for him in that moment because no, he's not an evil man, and he's not ruthless in the film, but he actually did try and do something that would, in his view, wrong as it was, but something that would benefit people. uh,
Yeah.
and you can say that intention is always noble. Was it well thought out? No, but it isn't necessarily evil either, or ruthless either.
No, no, but as we know all too well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yes.
And
True.
yeah.
No, he's fantastically played, by Richard Attenborough. He's really good.
Yes,
Oh, no,
I was
no.
rather amused that it was an Attenborough that was playing
Yes,
a role like that.
yes. When did he die, Richie? Is it
Oh, crumbs, I don't know.
10, 15
It's
years ago?
yeah.
They get quite old in that family. They keep going on. I love that.
I know. Yes, there's a gene in that family that I'd like to examine because they
No, he was great. He was fantastic in that. And also his and I think that relationship he has also with the other sort of staff members in the park. What's he called? Arnold. And he's completely relying on their expertise.
yeah.
And he lets them run with what they know and what they can do. And I think maybe along the way, especially when things start to break down, that he realizes that actually no one really has control here, especially not when systems start to break down.
Yeah, absolutely. And also he does have a moment where I think he's slightly rattled because as you say, he's very good at trusting and
Yeah,
delegating people who are specialists. But that unfortunately leaves the door open for Dennis and his
yeah,
mischief. And I think I don't know if everyone would come away from the film with this, but you can see it in his face that he's rattled by the
yeah,
betrayal because even after he's argued with Nedry about his money problems and the fact that he's a lazy slob who doesn't seem to want to do his job properly. And it does seem to come as a shock to him that
yeah,
someone on his
yeah.
team would pull that kind of a betrayal.
Yes.
And he very rapidly loses the initiative after that. He doesn't he goes from the decisive, confident character we see before then to a much more retiring one afterwards. And he sometimes rubs people the wrong way. I was very amused when he says to Ellie, "Oh, maybe I should go because
Yes. Yes.
And she says, "I'll talk to you about sexism when we come back."
Yes. And there's something little innocent about that, because he never says it. He goes, because I'm and you are
Yeah.
a, a sort of, but okay. And then he realizes maybe I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have gone there.
Mm,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
character. He is a good. And then, on the other side of that, Andrew, you have the scientist and the paleontologist. And I think what's wonderful about having them running about in the park trying to survive is that through them, we actually get quite a lot of knowledge about the different types of dinosaurs and how they live and everything, because they
Yes.
need to make good use of their knowledge in order to survive, obviously. But I think that also sparked, after the film, a huge fascination of dinosaurs because, especially a lot of children, they went completely mad for dinosaurs after this.
Yes, they did. And I mean, it reawakened my interest in
Mm.
dinosaurs because in 1993, the posters I'd mentioned earlier had come down and been replaced by other things. And one of the things I took away from Jurassic Park, and so did a lot of my friends, was, yeah, dinosaurs are really cool. Um, yeah, and as far as I understand it, in terms of, what paleontology was telling us about dinosaurs in the 1990s, the film made a lot of effort to try and get the details right.
Yes.
I think on that front, it's probably not aged so well because research and ideas have changed. But for
Yeah.
that moment in the 1990s,
True.
they did really, really well.
And I think also that we know, I think I read somewhere that, the different sounds the dinosaurs make is, that's kind of made up because obviously we don't know. Uh,
Mm.
but a lot of the sounds, especially, I think that that sort of hissing sound of the Velociraptor has become almost iconic now.
Yes.
The roar of the T-Rex and all of that. And they did make, I remember the Velociraptors a little bigger in the film that they seem to have been in reality. Uh,
Yeah.
because, they wanted to give them a bit of sort of extra weight to their danger.
Mm.
But they certainly got uh, even when we look at the elements that we don't know so much about, but they got the different animals and nuances and their different ways of surviving and living incredibly well through in this movie. That they all have things that make them unique and special, and they all have things that make them good hunters or good social animals, or good sort of with the social skills or whatever. And uh, I think also that little sense of, they were actually really clever. And if they had survived, maybe we wouldn't have been at the top of the food chain. There's that little kind of doubt put in.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, it is interesting to wonder what sort of a world it would have been if we'd had to share the planet with the dinosaurs. I don't know how that would have turned out. One can only speculate, but
yeah,
yes, yeah, we just have to hope that their lack of opposable thumbs and
that's
various other things would have given us a slight advantage, maybe achieve parity.
yeah, that's it. That's it. Andrew, do you have this, again, an impossible question? Do you have a favorite scene for this one?
Oh my goodness. Good Lord, there are so many. Let's have a think. Hard to say, but I'll tell you one of the scenes that really made me laugh then and still makes me laugh now. It's when they're making their final escape after the T-Rex has fortuitously come along and rescued them from the Velociraptors. And Alan Grant jumps into the Jeep and says, Mr. Hammond, after due consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park.
So have I. So have I.
Yeah. And that wonderful line and the response, it just had me giggling. And it needed that because it had been
Yes.
such a pulse-pounding
Yes.
scene. Something funny had to happen just to bring us down a bit. But
Yes.
what about you, Jane?
That
Same
that is
question.
and that, you get that, that's the screenshot right there. You have that banner coming down over the T-Rex as it roars, dinosaurs ruled, or when dinosaurs ruled the earth. That's a fantastic scene, that one. It's such a
Oh,
fantastic scene. Oh no, good pick, good pick. I, like you say, I don't know because there's so many, but I think the one that, I think the scene that kind of maybe made it sort of tingle with fear and excitement down my back a little bit was when Alan Grant is out in the park with the children, and they are sort of, the kids are arguing, and he just goes very quiet and sits down, and he sits there with this broken eggshell, and he just realizes, oh my God, Malcolm was right. They're breathing.
hmm.
And he realizes why. You can sort of see he's talking as he's thinking. He's sitting there going, well, there are some species of frogs, African frogs, that can change gender when necessary. And they told us at the lab that they use the DNA from a frog to fill in the lines here, and he sort of realizes that as he sits there with this broken eggshell, and he looks at the little foot prints leading away, and then he says, and he's almost smiling as he's saying it, because he realized this is actually brilliant and scary at the same time, and he goes, life found a way.
Yes, yeah, that is a beautiful scene, and it says a lot about his character because he is the consummate scientist in a way.
Mm.
I love that in the terrible situation they're in, he's excited because something scientifically
Yes.
exciting has gone across his field of vision. It's like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Yes.
We could be eaten any moment, right? No, but this is
Look
amazing.
at this. And that, and that he captures a scientist, a geeky scientist, brilliantly there, because you're so fascinated. And at the same time, oh my God, what have you done? And
Yeah.
it's the same sort of feeling when, I just really need to touch this very huge dinosaur that may potentially kill me, but I just really need to examine it.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, no, he does a brilliant job as well, Sam Neill. He always does. But I've just found that scene, sort of, because that was the scene where we all found out what we kind of know, that no, we have absolutely no control whatsoever. And he was just sitting
Yeah.
there with that broken eggshell. That wasn't anything, it's just a broken eggshell. But oh my God, it told a lot.
Yes. And it is something that the film's quite brave about. There are some stories out there and some films where they don't go too heavy on the science because they're
Yeah,
almost worried about boring people.
yeah,
But I think the film got the right balance in terms of what it explained. I did like that tour they started off on where they get the funny cartoon and then they get shown the labs and everything. And it's couched in wonderful terms because a complete layman like me, I know very little about any of the sciences, can get it on the
yeah,
first part. Like, oh, I see what you're
yeah,
doing there. And it helps to make it so plausible as well.
yeah.
Not to mention, and this is purely a side note, the first time I ever saw any mention or representation of virtual reality in a film. Do you remember
Yeah.
there's that 2-second shot of one of the scientists with the funny gloves and the oversized faceplate doing his thing? But
Yes.
but for 1993, that was quite an impressive nod to what VR technology in use would look like.
That is true. That is true. That is a good point. I think technically, overall, digitally, this was mind blowing back then. I mean, that little scene where Hammond is saying hello to himself on the screen, and I need something of your blood and a bit of your blood, and he goes, Dick, and oh, John, that hurt, and that little sort of interaction, that was mind blowing at the time. Now we don't think about it, but it was really, really strong digitally.
Yes, and it's just reminded me of another thing I'd wanted to mention earlier. The fact that those Jeeps are electrically run
Yes.
on rails, that was
Ooh,
so forward thinking for the time.
yeah.
But there's this hilarious combo as well. I can see them looking into the future and thinking, what will we have? And then when they get into the car, it's like, oh, look, it's a really up-to-date CD-ROM based.
Yes.
It's like, well, can't guess
You can touch
everything,
the
right?
screen. Look, you can touch the screen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
touch screen with icons. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, true, true. No, it was really ahead of its time back then. Now, but in many ways it has aged well. It's 20 years now. It's
Yeah,
it's aged
unbelievably.
really, really well. 30, isn't it? What is
Yes,
it?
1993. Hang on, let me do it. You see, I'm weak at maths, so
30?
it's over 30 years old now, that film. Oh
Sorry, I
my
was thinking
goodness.
2003 for some reason. No, no, 93, of course, 93. Yeah, no, it's 30 years. That's just slightly scary.
It is a bit, isn't it? Yeah, well, I mean, the shocker is I was looking up the cast a day or two ago, and when you find pictures of the actors who played the two kids, Lex and Tim, you look at them now, it's like, oh, they've grown up.
Oh, they're all grown up. Oh, well, I suppose they must be.
Yes, yeah, I suppose, yes, I would. What do you mean you don't look the same after 30 years, you two?
Oh no, that's time for you. But no, there's so many brilliant scenes, so many brilliant lines, and digitally, and the manuscript as well, really, really clever. And I keep mentioning the music, but we have to mention John Williams, don't we? He's
We must. We would do him a terrible disservice if we didn't. It's funny. I don't know if you have a sort of life track that overplays your memories of the 1990s, but the Jurassic Park theme
Yes.
overplays part of mine.
Oh my God, it was brilliant. But he does that. That's his thing. He just captures spirits and stories. and atmospheres really, really well in music. And the themes are just amazing. The main theme is just fantastic and bombastic, and you have these little sort of quiet, not love themes, but sort of quiet themes going on in between. And his use of, I think, especially in the intro, various types of horns and trumpets is really fantastic for this particular type of movie. And no, it just, the movie wouldn't be the same, would it, without his music?
No, I can't imagine it with any other composer's work. And actually, to be honest, I don't know how many parallel universes there are out there, but I like to think we got the best music if
Yep.
it's.
Oh, we did. Totally, totally. Oh, that was brilliant. That was the height of everything. What else, Andrew, do we need to talk about in relation to
Well,
Jurassic Park?
well, following on from the music, we could go on to the overall cultural impact because a couple of years after Jurassic Park came out, I remember all the younger kids in my school at the time, the ones who were doing recorder lessons. What were they playing? It was the theme to Jurassic Park,
Of
and
course they were.
yeah, and arguably recorders in the wrong hands are not the thing to do a homage to the Jurassic Park theme to, but it just shows yeah, to put it mildly. Yes. Primary school kids doing their best. They're doing their best, but no. And but it just shows how it just went viral. They people just loved this. And the merchandise, oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Oh my
I
goodness me. Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Everyone came to school with like little pencil houses with dinosaurs on it and stuff like that.
Yes, yeah, and that very iconic symbol, the silhouette of the T-Rex, which was the part logo. I saw it on school bags, pencil cases, notepads, everything you could imagine, clothing, of course.
Yes, of course, of course. I do remember. I remember. Oh my goodness me. You're so right. You're so right. It just brought on its own sort of life after that movie. Oh, that's when you know you've really hit jackpot.
Well, yes, yes, and I'm amazed at how the sequels have kept it alive. I know that the quality has arguably been a bit uneven. It's always the case with
Yeah.
sequels,
Yes.
but the fact that all of them, as far as I understand it, have sold really, really well and been box office hits, it just goes to show how much of an impact that's been created.
They have done well. I think of obviously the one thing they lack is the element of surprise because that's kind of gone with the first one. But and maybe some of them didn't have as strong stories and characters and so on. But overall they have done incredibly well. And I think the theme they have kept alive is basically why this is a really bad idea.
Yes, absolutely. Don't admire the bones. Don't try and grow the things
No,
because
very,
because
very
my,
bad idea. But that they still sell and they still fascinate, and maybe that's actually a really, really good point. And I think I just remembered, Andrew, for you and me as well. We went to the Natural History Museum and saw a dinosaur exhibition, and of course applied our very professional museum eye to it. We didn't, guys. We didn't.
I
We
love
went.
the dinosaur and the T-Rex in the Christmas jumper. That was
Oh,
brilliant.
yes, that was a classic. That was a classic. But we spent 5 minutes being professional. That's what Andrew and I do whenever we go see an exhibition. We spend 5 minutes being professional, and then we go, "Oh, what's this? What that? No, no, what's this? Oh, can you pronounce the name of that dinosaur?" That's what we did. We went around that exhibition going to what thesaurus? To what
Yeah, Slebediosaurus.
thesaurus? The one with the cravat, that one, the one with the mohawk, that one.
Yes.
That's what we did. That's what we did, basically. Yeah,
You're,
we had a great time doing it, but it was a fantastic exhibition.
and it was a really great day out. Just to bring you guys into this, Jane is actually being really kind. She stayed professional for 5 minutes. I don't think I even started.
Oh, you did. But it just shows how it still fascinates, and the story fascinates, and the different species fascinates, and I think the fact that they suddenly just disappeared is a huge fascination for us as well. Uh,
Yeah.
Creatures this dominating, creatures this huge, suddenly they're just gone. Uh,
Mm.
and there is a huge fascination into that element as well. And I think they will forever in exhibitions, in books, in movies. They will just forever fascinate.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right there. Yeah, they'll never lose their interest, and it's beautifully summed up by Tim's character when he keeps bugging Grant. It's like, I read this guy's book's much thicker than your book, and he says he disagrees with you. He says this happened to the dinosaurs.
Which
Um,
are you on? Just go.
yeah, yeah, I know. I'm going. And, and yes,
That's a
there's
good
that,
point.
and like you said earlier, there's something that speaks to our fascination with our own condition as a species as well. The fact that we're an inquisitive species, and we keep
Yeah,
wanting to try stuff, even when in the back of our minds we probably should think about this.
yeah,
Um, and those stories are always so popular,
yes,
humans trying something they shouldn't, and then it goes wrong, and then they
yeah,
have to put it right. I have a feeling that kind of narrative is always going to be a part of our various cultures,
yes.
and
You're right. You're
yeah,
right.
but this film will always be one of the great milestones in that kind of storytelling.
Yeah. No, you're so right. You're so right. And I think there's another fascination in the reminder that we may think we are dominating everything, but at the end of the day, we're just mammals and we are living and dying, and we may have a lot of technological advances, but at the end of the day, we have a place in the food chain, and it may be on top right now. It wasn't always, and it probably won't always be. But I think that reminder, seeing us in connection with something else that definitely would have dominated us, is
Mm.
always a fascination as well, and food for thought.
Yes, yes. As humanity does need, I think, to be reminded of the need for humility from
Yeah,
time to time, especially in our dealings with the natural world. It's
yeah, that is true.
um,
That is true.
yeah.
That's a good point almost to end on, Andrew.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. Well, we've come back to Crichton's original point in a way,
Yeah.
haven't we? When he gave us this remarkable gift of a story. So, yeah, yeah, I think that's a good one to close us. So we've visited the Jurassic period, and we've visited the 1990s
Oh, yeah.
culturally and cinema.
I
That
think
that's
that's
a two in one
that's
hit.
becoming our favorite decade, isn't it?
Yes, yes, and with good reason. I think there was something about the 80s and the 90s that was a really high point for Hollywood, and I mean cinema as a whole. It something
Yeah.
about those two decades. They scored so many wins.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're so right. Guys, let us know what you think of this movie. What did it do for you? Where were you when this came out? What did it mean to you?
Yes, and anything you want to add about dinosaurs or the culture of the 1990s? We remember it well. What were your impressions of it? And as ever, please do join in the conversations. Always great to have your perspective. So thank you so much in advance.
Thanks, guys, and thank you, Andrew. As always, this is fantastic.
A pleasure as always, Jane. Really good to have the chance of a chat, and thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Oh, yeah, we will be back. Take care, everyone.
Take care, all. See you soon, Jane.